bit today about desire. We're going to talk about it because that's the first chapter in Think and Grow Rich. And it's very, it's interesting. Like I was reading it and I thought, like, I kind of know this stuff, but then it's like anything, right? You read Thinking into Results, you do another chapter, you listen to another recording, and suddenly you're hearing it in a totally different light. So what my recommendation and suggestion for everyone is, if you have a notebook on this, like, let's take notes. Let's make it an active discussion, because I'm going to read a couple sentences and then I'm going to stop, and I want us to discuss it, because there's a difference between reading it and understanding it as you're reading it. Like, we could read 10 paragraphs really fast, but you could spend an entire class on one paragraph if you really wanted to, really understanding each word and why it was put there. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Anytime you have any questions or any thoughts, just jump in. Because again, I want this to be a discussion. It's not just me teaching, right? It's a discussion. I'll teach definitely things on it, but let's discuss it, because it's, what I've learned, especially in the one-on-one, when you ask people questions and then they have to come up with the answers, they learn much more quickly than trying to explain it to them. They have to think it through themselves and come up with the answer. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to kind of do. We're going to discuss like that, and it's going to be awesome. So let me share the screen here so I can pull this up. And here it is. Okay, so do me a favor. I know all the writing's on the screen. Just stay with me. Don't read ahead. Don't try to go forward. Let's just stay together and be really wide open. You remember how Bob says we take these little trips when we're reading or listening to something, like our mind takes a trip. We hear something and then we think a thought and we start thinking, and then we miss the next 3 lines because we were thinking about something. I'm going to ask for us all to practice just being really present and being really focused, right? This is a way for us to practice using our will, which is one of our mental faculties, right? To stay focused on this, right? And listen, you're going to go off track, right? It happens. Just keep pulling yourself back. It's the awareness of what you're doing that's the key. Like, oh, there I went. I started thinking about something else. Let me pull myself back here. Okay. All right. So before we actually start this, I just want to tell a little story, because it starts it here, but I want to tell you a little bit about this Edwin Barnes. First of all, does anyone know about Edwin Barnes at all? No, not really. Okay. So Edwin Barnes, this was right in New Jersey. I want you to think about this. The guy had $1 to his name. He didn't even actually, it wasn't $1, it was change. He didn't have enough money to take a train ride, which is where he wanted to go to meet Thomas Edison. His goal, think about this, he had nothing. His goal was to be in business with, not working for, in business with Thomas Edison. Now, let me ask you something, Mike. If this guy came up to you, he's got like 70 cents to his name, and he says to you, "Hey, Mike, I'm going to be in business with Thomas Edison." What would you think to yourself?
And I'm going to call the loony bin, psychiatric ward.
Right. Well, so from that piece right there, right here, he is. He has this desire. He has this dream. He has this want. He could go and start sharing that with other people, But why would it be important for him not to do that?
Well, he knows Thomas Edison, all the inventions he came up with. Why not go with the best?
Right. But I'm saying, why should Edwin Barnes not share his dream with other people?
Because those people don't know what he's trying to do. They're not as successful as someone like Thomas Edison.
That's right. They don't understand. Well, let me open up the floor. What else do you think? Why should Edwin Barnes not share his dream with other people? That was a good point, Mike. What else?
Because they would probably try and talk him out of it.
Right. I mean, honestly, what would you say to the guy if he came to you, not knowing him and not having studied what we studied?
It's kind of like the equivalent of me saying, I really want to work with Elon Musk. I'm going to own a company with Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Like, you would probably be like, well, what is your qualifications? Like, seriously? Like, how do you even know him? How do you expect to get to like know him and be on the same level as that person?
Exactly. You would start saying that, you would think, this is like, come on, man, listen, it's a great thought, but this is not going to be an easy task. So, right. So what Frank's saying and what Mike's saying is, if we share that with someone, they're going to potentially knock it down and say, you can't do this. And let me ask you this question. Why do you think that someone might do that they would try to knock the dream of someone else down? What do you think?
Because they're
A lot
insecure.
of times, sorry,
Because they're insecure. Frank said, what were you going to say, Nate?
a lot of times they just don't have the imagination for it.
They certainly don't have the imagination, right? They probably have never used their imagination. Or I shouldn't say that. Maybe they've used it in a negative way, which is demonstrated by what they're saying. But what else does it tell us about that person when it comes to them thinking about themselves? What do you think?
They don't believe in
About
themselves.
Edwin?
No, if
The other person.
the other person is knocking down the dream of someone else.
Well, I
What
think
does it tell-
I think
yeah,
a lot of people get jealous of people. They don't want to see him succeed
and you're 100% right. And why wouldn't they want to see them succeed?
because they're not succeeding.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That was the point I was going for. Because they don't want to see someone else succeed because they're not succeeding. Because if you said that to a very successful person, so Edwin Barnes comes up to someone who's very successful and says that what he says, what do you think potentially that really successful person might say to him?
They might say, follow your dreams.
Go for it, right? Follow your dreams. The only reason it can't happen is if you stop and don't do it. Anything's possible. If the Wright brothers can fly a plane and everyone thought they were crazy and they put them in, his father said they should be put in a mental institution and they still did it, then anything's possible, right? That's what someone who's successful, a successful thinker would potentially say. So the guy decides that he's going to be in business with Edison. Everyone could think he's a lunatic. He could think he's a lunatic. He could think negatively and say, this is never going to happen. But I want you to look at the first sentence here. It says, when Edwin Barnes climbed down the freight train in Orange, New Jersey, more than 30 years ago, he may have resembled a tramp, right? What's another word for a tramp? Like a derelict, someone who's not knowledgeable, can't get things done, whatever, something like that, right? But what does this say? His thoughts were those of a king. What word is emphasized there?
The thoughts.
Yeah, his thoughts were those of a king. What does that tell us in just that first paragraph? What would be the important thing to when we have a dream, when we have a goal, when we have something that we want? What would
Imagination.
be the most important thing for us to really achieve that? What's the first sentence here? What does it say?
His imagination of becoming a king or a business owner. He had it in his mind already.
Yeah, he definitely, right? That's true. We're going to get there in a second, Mike. But the very first thing we're mentioning is the thoughts. His thoughts were those of a king. So let's put this into application for us. Whatever goal you have, whatever desire you have, whatever it is that you want, goal, desire, want, all the same kind of thing, right? It's all the same. What type of thoughts do you need to consistently have?
That it's already
Unwavering
happened.
positive.
All right, so Frank, you go first. What did you say? You said positive. What did you say?
I would just say unwavering, like positive thoughts on your goal.
Unwavering positive thoughts. So give me an example if you can, and then Nate, you'll go next. Give me a couple of examples of the thoughts that you would have for what you're doing.
I would just be thinking like nobody else knows my desire like myself, and I'm gonna show them that I can do anything I put my mind to.
I can do anything I put my mind to. What else for anyone else? What thoughts would you have which would show you're having thoughts of a king? Go ahead. Nate, did you want to go?
I was just gonna say that he already believed it happened. Like it's already in his mind that he's working with Thomas Edison. So
It's already there. He's thinking it. He's seeing it, which we're going to see in a second. He's seeing it, but he's thinking it. He's thinking those thoughts, like Frank said. Mike, what other thoughts would someone, what would you, what are, here you are, you know what you want. What are thoughts that are necessary for you to have consistently to show that you're thinking like a king?
Well, not only positive, but like imagining, I would think, that $1 million mansion or two, whatever mansion you decide on, vacations, taking care of your family, them have to worry about anything,
Yeah. And so this is so good. I love this. Right. So you're thinking about that and you're starting to see it. And we're going to talk about the visual piece of that in a second, which is really good. But yeah, those are the type of thoughts that we need to have. That's the thoughts that he had. And remember, the important thing here is this book, it took Napoleon Hill most of his life to write this book. It took most of life, and it was based on the most successful people. And this was the information that he, after talking to 500 of the most successful people, he distilled it and brought it and put it into words here. So when he's using words, we have to pay attention to the words because the words are really important. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Now, I want you to tell me something and be really honest. Had you read this first paragraph before, would you have seen it the way that we just discussed it? No, everyone's shaking their head no. That's the key. That's why it may take us a year to get through this or whatever. I don't know how long. But the point is, we're going to go through it and we're going to understand it. And then we're going to also apply it in our life. Because if we don't understand it, then we certainly can't apply it in our life. That makes sense? All right. So the first part of a desire is we've got to think as if we already have this, right? We've got to just what can happen when we're having these positive thoughts? What can jump in and try to take it away from us in our own mind? What can we do sometimes?
Well, the paradigm starts to creep in and we start to doubt ourselves.
Paradigm comes creeping in. Give me an example. What's one for you that will come in sometimes and try to snatch your positive thoughts away?
Oh, I'm not smart enough to do this.
Perfect. And it's just the paradigm, right? But that's the thing. If we give in, and we've all done it, We've all done it. I do it every day. I catch myself. I'm like, oh, okay, I've got a shift, right? If we all do that, I think Frank will be back in a second. If we all do that, what happens? If we give into the paradigm, what happens to our thoughts?
They go negative.
And once that happens, Mike, what happens from there?
We'd never go to Thomas Edison's place of work. That's for sure.
Yeah. Where do you go
Back
instead?
home in the couch.
Back home on the couch. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you go back home on the couch and you're thinking those other thoughts. And where do you, but think about this. Where do you actually go when you're thinking those thoughts? Where are you? Like when you're thinking your negative thoughts, what are you thinking about? And where does it take you visually?
Me personally,
Yeah, like just as an example.
living in a 1-bedroom studio in the bad section of town, like
I
no
mean,
money.
Right. Okay. Right. So I'm not making, isn't it amazing? Do you see what just happened there? I asked Mike what his visual was when it came to that negative thinking taking over. And didn't you all get a picture of what that looked like? Right. He's living in this little tiny apartment and kind of miserable, right? You can see it. Yeah, so that's why in this first paragraph, when it's talking about thinking like a king is saying, okay, I'm going to consistently stay positive. I know that negative thoughts will come up. I know it will happen. It's going to, it's just the way the program works. It happens. When that happens, what's the best thing that we can do? The negative pops in. What do we do? I have a negative thought. What should I do next?
You just change it. Like you basically shock yourself back onto the other. I always think of the two sides that we would draw a line down this, and you're either on the right side, which is the negative, or the left side. And I'm like, I'm on the right side. I got to get back to the left side. So like the positive thinking that's going to lead to positive results.
100%. You know what? We are aware that there it is. Okay, it just happened. Like Frank said, we're just going to switch right back to a positive. And the more we do it, right, the more it slows down and we stay over here on the positive more often. Okay. So now that took us about 20 minutes to get through one sentence. It's funny because a long time ago, I don't remember who was in the group, but we had a small group of people and we studied The Secret, the book, do you remember that, Yvette? Yeah. Yeah. We studied the book, The Secret, and it took us forever. But you know what? But we understood it as we were going through it, which is great. So, okay, let's continue on. Don't worry about how far we get. We're getting far by understanding it. Okay, so here's the next paragraph. As he made his way from the railroad tracks to Edison's office, here it goes. His mind was at work. So he's walking from the railroad station or the train station to his office. His mind is at work. Here you go, Mike. You had mentioned this earlier. He saw himself standing in Edison's presence. He heard himself asking Mr. Edison for an opportunity to carry out one consuming obsession of his life, a burning desire to become the business associate of the great inventor. What was he doing there?
Playing out the scene, how he was going to talk to him to become
Oh,
a
Mike.
partner.
I can't hear you. You're muted for some reason.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're back. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay,
Nate.
go ahead.
So he was visualizing how he wanted it to go. How he
Visualize.
wanted that conversation to go.
At any point in that paragraph, was he thinking, oh man, what if I get there and the secretary is rude to me and she won't let, was that even, and did it even enter his mind? No. And that's why it's here. think about how quickly you could have read through that paragraph and you potentially would not have seen any of that. He was living it in his head many, 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 many times before he even got to where he was going to go, to the office. So for us, again, let's now bring it to us. What does that mean for us? No matter what we're going to do, if we're going to make a phone call to someone, if we have a business meeting, if we're, doing something that is maybe a little fearful for us, what do we need to do based on this paragraph right here?
Act as if.
Yes. The beautiful thing about our mind, we can be anything that we want in our mind. And the only person that can stop us from doing that is ourselves. I could be a champion, like a champion tennis player. I mean, I don't really love tennis, but my point is, if I wanted to, I could be that in my head. I could literally become that by thinking it every day and then starting to move on it, right? But I've got to start here in my head. I've got to be the best. Did you guys see the movie, what was the Williams sisters, where Will Smith was in it? Did you guys see that movie? Frank, you saw it?
Yeah.
So tell me your opinion of what was Will Smith, who played Serena and Venus Williams' father, when it came to the girls getting a contract, what was his point in his mind? Where was he at his mind?
Like he thought they deserved like the pinnacle of the best contract for any women's tennis player in the world.
Did anyone ever give him like negative feedback about that? And then what was his response?
He said, I know that you're wrong. Basically, he's like, I know that you're wrong. I know what I have here, and you don't know what I have here.
Yeah, you're missing out. He's like, you're missing out on the biggest opportunity that's ever come to you.
Right.
And he said it with that much confidence and that much conviction. Meanwhile, his girls, they at that point, they weren't, they were playing and they were good, but they, no one really knew what was going on at that point.
Right.
But what was he doing? He was living inside of his head, right?
Yep.
No one was going to tell him ever that he couldn't do it. And they did tell him, but he was never going to accept it, right? The person says something to him, and what did he do before letting it into his conscious mind?
He blocked it out.
Goodbye. And not only did he block it out, but then he went further and said, no, the girls are going to have the best contract ever. You're missing out on a huge opportunity. Like, this is going to be the biggest opportunity you miss out on ever. What do you remember what he did, Frank? What did he do? Didn't he have a written contract that he actually made in advance?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So think about this. He creates a contract for the girls and brings it with him everywhere he goes. Because in his mind, he was getting them a contract, period, the end. And what ended up happening? Well, we all know that, right? He got the contract. People thought he was a lunatic. People thought Edwin Barnes was a lunatic. Who cares? Look at what they got. They got what they wanted. They had the desire. They had the want. And no one was going to tell them any different. Does that make sense? Now, let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Do we have that kind of burning desire when it comes to what we want? Shaking your head, no. That's very honest, Mike. No, Frank. I'm going to shake my head too. I don't think I'm at that level where Will Smith or, Venus Williams' father was. Like, I want to be at that place. I want to be at that place because that's where we need to be. Now, again, don't beat yourself up. We're where we're at. We're learning, we're growing, we're taking this, and we're going to be ahead of a lot of other people because we're studying this. So just be aware of, hey, where am I right now when it comes to my desire? And where do you really want to be? And then ask yourself, well, how could I maybe get one step closer to that? So let's ask that question right now. How can you get one step closer to being and living in that desire? What do you think? Just one step. You don't have to be fully in, just one step. Yeah,
So
Nate.
there's one thing I've been doing where I'm posting my goals, like with Post-it notes. I'm posting it pretty much in my bedroom. I'm posting it in my office, on the mirror. So
Yeah, because you have it. It's your dream, and no one's going to tell you no, even no matter what the outside circumstances are showing you. You're still, and you're going to see as we get into this a little bit, he did show up and he does get to talk to him, but he doesn't get to work as an associate for like 6 full years, 5 or 6 years. So think about that. For 5 or 6 years, he worked in a low job but in his mind, he was always working with him. Even when he was there, you'll see how that happens. So that's what you're doing, Nate. You're living there already. Yvette, share what you did about the check and you put it in the bathroom.
So I wrote out a check for $250,000 and I put when I would have the check by. It's all written, it's in our bathroom. So we both pass it every single day. It's an amount that's constantly in my head. And you guys know me, I always have like this intuitive thing. So that amount, I have no idea where that kind of money is coming from or where. I don't really know, but we pass it several times a day because it's right in the bathroom, right on the mirror. So we look at it all day long.
And when you see it, what do you do in your head and what do you say to yourself?
Well, I think it's real. I really honestly think it's real. I'm like, okay, this is, you go in there and you start saying things because it's right next to my office. And we actually start like building up on like, okay, so when this money comes in, this is what we're doing with it. So we really are planting the seeds that it's just a matter of time before that check is deposited.
Yes, it is beautiful. We're living in a fantasy in our head, like Edwin Barnes, like Serena Williams' father. Because if we don't live there, we're never going to see it in the end. That's what if you think of anyone, the Wright brothers, Marconi, who was thrown into a mental institution for thinking, he said, I can take sound without a wire and have it travel from here to, and then you'd be able to receive it over there. They threw him into a mental institution for his idea, right? But the thing is, what are all the key elements of the people? They're all thinking like this. No one's going to talk them out of it. And that's where we need to move towards that.
Mike. I'm sorry. We should share. I'll put it in the WhatsApp group. I got to find it. The link to that channel that we watch on YouTube that has all the celebrities talking about how they manifested things. I mean, some of them at a very, very young age, and people thought that they were insane, but they really and truly believe these things from a very young age, whether it be awards, accolades, or the amount of money, they believed it at a very young age.
Yeah.
And nobody was going to talk them out of it. And it's just something like, wow, I need to be using my imagination a lot more than I do.
And again, it's becoming aware, right? You became aware of it. You heard it. You realized, oh my God, I got to use my imagination more. That's what this book is going to do. It's going to bring to the table the awareness of the things that we, could be doing. The things that the really most successful people were doing. And we're like, oh, you know what? I need to improve in this area. And we just keep working on becoming better and better. Small steps at a time. When I go in and I see that check, you know what I say? I say, Yvette, that is amazing. You did such an incredible job. I'm so proud of you. Do I say it every time I go into the bathroom?
You do.
Every time I say, I am so proud of you. I said, listen, we got to take that check and we got to go deposit it today. And I say it just like that. I'm not playing around. I'm not laughing. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Because it will become reality if we do that. Just like when Will Smith was saying, here's the contract I have. Do you want to sign it right now? And people laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing at him anymore because both of his girls were like, yeah, they both got amazing contracts. So the point is it's okay. It's okay to be in that place. So I'm going to have to jump off in a little bit because I have a call at 10, but so we got through 2 paragraphs today. What do you think?
Good. Good.
Isn't it good though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever like taken time to read a book like this? No.
With you, that was the last time I did it.
That was it. But you know what? Look, if Bob spent all that time on it, let's do the same thing. Let's spend a lot of time really getting it and understanding it. But importantly, like we're doing, discussing it and then saying, okay, how can I apply this? How can I do it? So let's talk about takeaways from all of you for today based on the 2 paragraphs that we read today. What are some takeaways for you for today?
Imagine, what you want to be and do, and block out any paradigms that come in that are negative that are going to bring you to a different place.
100%. I love that. What else?
It's kind of like Frank's Jalen Hurts. I mean, the guy was a quarterback for the University of Alabama. The coach took him out in the middle of the championship game at halftime, put someone else in, and the guy could have just quit and said, I'm done. And now here he is, a Super Bowl quarterback. He's hit the pinnacle, and he's only a 26 or 5-year-old kid. I mean, he's a young man. He's got a great future, big bucks out of him. But he saw himself being better than being taken out of a game.
Mike, you couldn't have said it any better. That's it. And all he did was go here. He could have said, oh man, I'm done. They take me out of this it was a championship game.
Championship game, yeah.
National championship game, yeah.
I mean, that's
Halftime.
amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it really is.
Amazing. So, okay, that's great. What else? Who else has takeaways they could share?
Just my takeaway is similar to what Mike said, but also like take small steps into like focusing and creating your desire to get it to a certain level where we need to be.
Yeah.
Just acting as if we're already successful too. I mean, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, and think about someone like for, not but like a story of either Edwin Barnes or Serena Williams' father. Like think to yourself, how am I even close to the level where he's at? Okay, that's okay that I'm not. How can I move closer? How can I get just a little bit closer to that? And that's our goal, is to keep moving closer and closer to that. Yeah. Love it. Anyone else?
What came to mind was Jeff Bezos. He started in, a one room office, basically by himself on the computer, and he kept a vision of what it could become. And he took the steps and built it up, and then now look at Amazon. So
exactly.
You may not like him, but
right. But he did it. He believed it. There's a picture of him in that apartment with an Amazon sign.
Yep.
Like just a regular cardboard, Amazon, it says. I mean, people would have thought the guy was crazy. Imagine if he told people we're going to be all over the world delivering everywhere. They would say, okay, whatever. But he believed it, and he didn't let anyone stop him from believing it. Every successful person, because they're going to, as we get further into this chapter, they're going to talk about specific instances of people, and every single one of them did the same thing. they didn't allow any outside thing to prevent them from living this dream and this fantasy and this, it was actually reality for them in their mind.
There's a lot of stories like that. If you think about all the computer guys and the other guy, I forget the Twitter, he bought Twitter. What's his name? I forget his name.
Yeah.
The guy that went up to space and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Even you take like Sylvester Stallone with the Rocky movies. No one wanted to do it. He said, or no one wanted to give him a job. So he said, screw you guys. I'll write my own story and star in it. And so there you go.
Yeah. But you know, the funny thing is, and you'll see when Yvette shares that link to that website of the celebrities talking about manifestation and the thinking and really seeing it in your mind, you're going to hear the theme over and over and over again. They all were living it before it even happened. And when they got there, they're like, it made sense to them because they had lived it so many times in their head that they were now it made sense that it was actually happening. So yeah, this is good. So how do you like the format that we're doing, the way that we're kind of discussing it this way? Does that work for all of you guys? What do you think?
Works for me.
Absolutely.
And thank you for restarting the class up, even though it's only 1 day a week now, but that's still better than no days a week.
Yeah, no problem. I listen, it's good. I think studying this will be an amazing thing for all of us.
I was begging Yvette to get you to do it twice a week, maybe. And I was saying, oh, talk to him, see what he says.
Maybe we'll see that. Maybe at some point we'll do this twice a week. But I want everyone to come in totally focused and ready and be able to be like present for that whole time. And when we're studying, I just want to, because studying is different than, I don't know. That's a paradigm. So I take that back. But let's see. Let's start with 1 and maybe we'll advance up to 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I was visualizing 2, you know.
I just put the link in our group chat.
You never know, Nate. It could be 2 someday.
Could be.
Listen, I love studying this stuff. So if you guys like it, we'll just, let's see. We'll see. I'm not committing yet, but I will make a decision soon on it.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, guys. Have an amazing day, amazing weekend.
Good weekend.
Have a good week, everybody. Weekend. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.